certainly going to continue to expand all the time. Here, each site is symbolized by a point. This representation of the internet illustrates a complexity that looks similar to match what we know about the universe. The total number of existing websites reached the 1 billion mark in 2014.
Aujourd'hui, pour raconter le début du XXIe siècle, l'historien dans 1000 ans disposera de quantités inouïes d'informations. Et donc pour lui, ce sera beaucoup plus difficile de trouver et de donner du sens au milieu d'une telle abondance d'informations.
Do we run the risk of disappearing given this immensity? Internet traffic creates a mass of data that can overwhelm our digital memory if we don't have efficient computer tools to manage them. Researchers in Venice, equipped with powerful data analysis software, have launched a mining project, much like archaeologists, of the largest paper archives in the world. Their approach is probably an example of how future historians will work, given the immense quantity of information that we are currently generating. The field of investigation is not the internet, but rather the archives of the state of Venice. Millions of documents spanning 10 centuries of the city's history are stored in 80 kilometers of shelves. It includes birth and death certificates, business registers and notarized deeds, along with other documents, both valuable and mundane. With these priceless archives, it will be possible to reconstruct, nearly day by day, the life of the city and its residents, to form a kind of Google ahead of its time. How to query such a large quantity of information? The Venice Time Machine project, begun by the city of Venice and the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, the EPFL, is trying to answer this question.
Venice Time Machine est un
The Venice Time Machine project aims to create new tools for navigating through the 1,000 years of Venetian and European history, based on a major digitization of the Venice archives.
Programme de numérisation des archives de Venise.
The idea is essentially to transform the dozens of kilometers of documents that we have into an open information system that will be accessible via new navigation interfaces.
Par des nouvelles interfaces de navigation.
By disassociating the document from its medium, digitization dispenses with the need to handle paper, which is heavy and bulky. In a sense, the information is suspended in a digital space. Then it can be accessed an infinite number of ways. A word or a proper noun can be found nearly instantaneously within the thousands of scattered documents.
Ce que permet l'indexation des documents, c'est faire des interconnexions qui étaient impossibles à faire avant. Vous êtes capable de trouver tous les documents qui traitent d'une personne particulière, même si c'est dans des séries documentaires différentes, des contrats d'apprentissage, des actes variés.
You are able to do the same thing for places. In other words, find all the documents referring to a particular place among the mass of documents. You can restrict this search to a specific place and time, therefore offering new ways of accessing information that would be totally impossible to do if you were working with a traditional catalog and regular paper records.
Did the Venetian administrators from the year 1000 even imagine that one day they would face physical limits? While paper records are efficient, it is a laborious process. 10 centuries later, we now have algorithms and software that can create connections between diverse data in order to make sense of it. And And thus another history of the Venetian Republic, one that is more subtle, more nuanced, more accurate, emerges from the enormous mass of disparate papers.
Chacun des
Each of
documents
the
que nous avons
documents we have
transcrits
transcribed
est
is then
ensuite analysé à la
analyzed to search
recherche
for the
de
names
noms
of
de
people and
personnes ou de
places.
lieux. Ici, nous avons
Here we
la
have a person
personne
named
Battista
Battista
Nani,
Nani,
qui est connectée
who
à
is linked to
différentes autres
several other
personnes
people
qui ont été
who have been identified by
identifiées
the
par
recognition
l'algorithme de
algorithm.
reconnaissance.
And little by little,
Et petit à
it
petit,
forms an
ceci
initial
forme
graph
un
which is
premier
linked to
graphe
this
qui est
particular
associé
document.
à ce document particulier. Le même procédé
The
est
same process
répété
is repeated
sur
for others,
d'autres
such as tax
déclarations
declarations, for
d'impôts, par
example.
exemple ici. Le personnage Battista
Here,
Nani
Battista
est
Nani is
connecté
connected to other
progressivement
people.
à d'autres personnes. Quand nous avons fait toutes ces extractions,
When we
eh
have
bien, nous
extracted
mettons
all the data,
ensemble
we can then
toutes les
gather all the
informations que nous avons
information
sur une personne
available on a
particulière.
particular person.
Et c'est
In
ainsi
this
que nous
way,
constituons ce
we
grand
can create
graphe
this large
qui
graph
constitue
that
d'une
forms
certaine
something
manière une
like
espèce
a
de Facebook
Facebook
du
of the
passé
past.
et qui
It
ne
will
fait
only
que
continue to
croître au
grow
fur
as
et à
we
mesure
digitize
que nous
and
les
analyze the
enrichissons et que nous les
archives.
analysons.
Battista Nani, whose name and life had been buried in a sea of paper, has been revived. Now, Venetians from the past are no longer immersed in an anonymous crowd, but become individual, interacting destinies that have fashioned history.
Une des grandes
One
forces
of the
des
great
archives à
strengths of
Venise,
the
c'est
Venice
qu'il y a autant de
archives is that
documentation
there is
sur la
so much
micro-histoire,
documentation
c'est-à-dire
on the
l'histoire
micro-history.
de tous les
In
Vénitiens
other
et pas
words,
simplement les
the history
grands
of all the
hommes, qui constitue
Venetians and
véritablement
not
la
merely the major
densité
figures.
de la grande histoire.
This
c'est son
forms the
ubiquité
dense
dessus.
fabric of history with a
J'espère vraiment
capital
pour le
H,
futur
the
que
history
les
we
historiens
study.
qui s'intéresseront
And
à
I
notre
truly hope that in
époque,
the future,
peut-être dans
historians
100
looking
ans,
back at
200
our era,
ans,
perhaps in
auront à leur
100 years or
disposition
200
suffisamment
years,
de données
will
pour
have
reconstituer
available
avec la
a
même
sufficient
densité
amount of
l'époque
data to
contemporaine.
reconstruct
Pas
our
en tant que
contemporary
telle
era
la
with the
fragilité ou la
same
solidité
density.
des disques durs du futur
It is
qui nous
not so
dira
much the
ce que les
fragility
données
of the
vont
hard drives
conserver,
of the
c'est
future.
précisément notre
What
capacité à
matters is
mettre
our
en place
ability to set
des
up procedures
procédures
to
pour
encode,
coder,
recode,
recoder,
transmit, and perpetuate
transmettre,
over all these years the data we
accompagner
will
durant
have
toutes ces
created.
années les données que nous aurons créées.
In our time, we are gathering the same type of individual and collective information that were collected over the centuries by the Venetians, along with the data produced by major research laboratories, that of administrations, plus Facebook, Twitter, and other social networks. If we do not have instruments capable of navigating through this mass of information, they will be hard to consult, just like the paper archives prior to the development of the Venice time machine. These new navigational tools already exist. In the United States, IBM has developed an ultra-powerful interface called Watson. With its algorithms, this supercomputer can analyze and retrieve 200 million pages in 3 seconds. In the near future, we may have an interface on our computers or our mobile phones that will have enough computing power to be something of an additional memory device. At present, our memory is an interconnected mass memory that can be consulted constantly, in which, despite the fragility of the current media, will keep information available.
Pendant très longtemps, nous avons eu peur de l'oubli. La peur de l'oubli, c'est la peur de la mort, c'est l'idée qu'on va disparaître. Et donc la mémoire, c'est la manière de retenir le temps, une certaine manière de retenir la mort. Désormais, cette question de retenir la pensée, retenir le souvenir qu'on a de quelqu'un, ou qu'on a d'un pays, ou qu'on a d'une histoire, est désormais une crainte qui est inutile, puisque le numérique permet de tout garder. Mais en gardant tout, on pose des questions aujourd'hui qui sont des questions nouvelles pour l'histoire de l'humanité.